In the quiet farming village of Ago Oyin lived a young woman named Naomi Adeyemi. At only 22 years old, Naomi had already carried more responsibility than most people twice her age. She had lost both of her parents, lived in a tiny rented room, and worked from morning until night, just to keep food on the table, and her little sister, Blessing, in school. Naomi had almost nothing to her name. Her clothes were old, her shoes were worn, and some nights she went to bed wondering how they would survive another week. But there was one thing poverty had never taken from her: her honesty. And Naomi had no idea that very soon, while working on a wealthy man's farmland, she would uncover something buried beneath the earth that would change her life forever and reveal a secret her family had been carrying for 30 years. The sun was still climbing over the palm trees when they made her empty her bag in front of everybody. Naomi stood in the middle of the wide concrete courtyard of Ogunremi Farms, her hands shaking so badly that the small blue bag slipped twice before she could turn it over. Out came a comb with 3 broken teeth, a half tube of toothpaste, a wrapper folded into a square, a tiny bottle of shea butter, a photograph of a little girl in a school uniform that was already too small for her. That was everything she owned in this world, spilling into red dust while 40 farm workers watched and said nothing. Chief Harrison stood on the raised step in front of his farmhouse, with his arms folded across his agbada, looking down at her the way a man looks at a stain on his floor. Only an hour before that moment, Naomi had walked into his house, carrying something in her arms that could have made her rich for the rest of her life. She had carried it to him with her own 2 hands. She had given it away without taking one single piece for herself, and now he was asking the workers to search her body. Before we go further into what Naomi found under that farm and what it cost her, please take 1 second to subscribe to this channel and press the like button, because these stories only reach more people when you do. And in the comments, tell me the city or the country where you are listening from right now. I read every one of them, and I would love to know who is with me today. Now, let us go back to the beginning, to how a quiet girl from a small town in Ogun State ended up standing in that courtyard with her whole life scattered on the ground. Naomi Adeyemi was 22 years old, and she had learned very early that beauty could be a problem when you were poor. She had grown up in Ago Oyin, a small farming town about an hour outside Abeokuta, where the roads turned to red mud in the rainy season, and the whole community knew whose child was crying before the mother did. Her father, Sunday Adeyemi, had been a well digger. He was the man they called when a borehole failed, or when a compound needed water, and he would go down into the earth with a rope around his waist and a lamp tied to his head, and come back up covered in wet clay, smelling of iron and stone. Naomi still remembered how he used to laugh when her mother complained about the state of his trousers. He would say that the ground was his office, and no man should apologize for the dirt of his own office. He died when Naomi was 7 years old. They told her he fell inside a well at a construction site near Ibadan, and that the sand collapsed on him before anybody could pull him out. They buried him quickly, and her mother wore black for 2 years and never spoke about that night again. Whenever Naomi asked questions, her mother's face would close like a door, and she would send her out to buy something they did not need. Her mother followed him 9 years later. Diabetes, untreated for too long, because treatment costs money, and food costs money, and school fees cost money, and a widow with 2 daughters must choose. Naomi was 16 when she buried her, and the day after the funeral, the relatives who had wept loudest came to the house and began dividing the few things inside it. An uncle took the sewing machine, an aunt took the 2 goats, somebody took the standing fan. What they left behind was Naomi and a 5-year-old girl named Blessing. So Naomi became a mother at 16. She hawked sachet water. She plaited hair on a bench outside their room. She washed clothes for women who paid her late and complained about the ironing. She sold roasted plantain in the evenings, standing beside the coal fire until her eyes burned. And through all of it, she kept blessing in school, because that was the one promise she had made at her mother's grave, and the only one she had managed to keep. But Naomi was not a saint, and this story would be a lie if it painted her as one. She had a temper that frightened even her. When she felt she was being cheated, something rose in her chest that she could not always control, and it had cost her jobs. There was a shop in Abeokuta where a customer accused her of removing money from the counter, and Naomi shouted at that woman in front of the whole street until the owner sent her home. Nothing was ever stolen. It was found later in the woman's own handbag. Nobody apologized, but the name followed Naomi for months, and after that she developed a fear that shaped everything she did afterwards. She became terrified of ever being called a thief again. She would return a customer's change, even when it meant walking a kilometer. She refused gifts she had not earned. She would rather go hungry than be suspected. Remember that fear. It explains everything she does later, when a wiser woman might have chosen differently. Blessing was 10 now, and she was the reason Naomi took the job at Ogunremi Farms. Ogunremi Farms was the largest private farm in that part of Ogun State. Cassava, maize, poultry, and rows of watermelon that stretched until the land met the sky. It belonged to Chief Harrison Ogunremi, a heavy man in his early 50s, who wore expensive caps and gold rings, and who had inherited every acre of it from his late father, Chief Adekunle Ogunremi. The whole town knew Harrison. The whole town also feared him, quietly, the way people fear a man who has never once been told no. He paid his workers less than any farm in the local government area, and he paid them late. He deducted money for broken tools, for late arrival, for anything he could name. Workers who complained were replaced by the next morning, because there were always more hungry people than there were jobs. His foreman, a hard-faced man named Yusuf, carried a rolled newspaper he used to point at people, and he pointed at them often. Naomi was hired as a house help and general worker, which meant she did whatever anybody told her to do. She cleaned the main house from 6 in the morning. She washed the chief's cars. She served guests. And when the farm was short of hands, which was often, she was sent out to the fields in the afternoon sun to weed, to harvest, to carry. Her beauty made things harder, not easier. 2 of the chief's cousins visited the farm regularly and made comments that made her skin crawl. Yusuf found reasons to send her to distant parts of the farm alone. She learned to tie her scarf low, to keep her eyes on the ground, to move fast, to never be the last person leaving a room. The only kindness she found there came from 2 people. The first was Mrs. Folak, the old cook, a wide, tired woman who wrapped extra food for Naomi in nylon bags and pretended not to notice when it disappeared. The second was Baba Tunde. Baba Tunde was the oldest worker on the farm, a thin man in his 70s with a bad leg and cloudy eyes, who had worked that land since the days of Harrison's father. He mostly sat in the shade repairing tools nobody else could repair. The first time he heard Naomi's surname, he went completely still. He asked her, very quietly, whether her father was the Sunday Adeyemi who dug wells. When she said yes, the old man looked at her for a long moment with an expression she could not read at all. Then he said that her father had been a good man, that he had been a very good man, and that some good men are punished for being good. And then he refused to say one more word about it, no matter how many times she asked him afterwards. That was in her 2nd week. By her 4th month, she had almost forgotten it. Then came the morning of the burst pipe. It was the last week of the rainy season, and one of the old irrigation lines that ran along the eastern edge of the farm had cracked open in the night, flooding 2 rows of cassava. Yusuf sent Naomi and two other workers out with shovels to dig around the pipe so the mechanic could reach the damage. The other two abandoned her after an hour to go and eat. Naomi stayed, because Naomi always stayed. She had been digging for close to 20 minutes when her shovel struck something that was not stone and not soil. It made a sound she had never heard come out of the ground before. A flat, hollow sound, the sound of something empty underneath. She stopped. She looked around. The field was silent, except for water hissing out of the broken pipe. She knelt down and scraped the mud away with her hands, and slowly, under the red earth, a flat gray surface began to appear. Concrete. Poured concrete, deep in the middle of a farm, where no building had ever stood, and set into that concrete, half-eaten by rust, was an iron ring. Naomi sat back on her heels and stared at that rusted ring for a long time. Every sensible instinct in her body told her to cover it back with mud, walk away, and forget it. She had been on that farm long enough to know that in this life, secrets belonging to rich men are dangerous to poor girls. But there is a kind of curiosity that is stronger than fear, and it had already taken hold of her hands before her mind could argue. She cleared the mud away from the edges. The slab was about the size of a door, and there were rusted hinges on one side. She hooked the shovel through the ring, braced her legs, and pulled. Nothing. She pulled again, throwing her whole weight backwards, and the slab shifted with a groan that seemed to come from under the world. On the fourth attempt it lifted, and a breath of cold, dead air came up out of the earth and touched her face. Below her was a hole with iron rungs set into the wall, going down into blackness. She should have run. Instead, she found herself thinking about her father, about a man who went down into the ground for a living, and something about that thought steadied her. She took out her small torch, held it between her teeth, and climbed down. The chamber at the bottom was smaller than a bedroom, with walls of poured concrete and a floor of dry sand. It was cool and completely silent, and in the middle of it, stacked in 3 wooden crates that had rotted at the corners, were bars of metal. They were dull, dusty, not shining like the jewelry in Abeokuta shops. But when Naomi wiped one with her thumb, a deep, heavy yellow came out from under the dust, and her heart began to beat so hard she could hear it in her ears. There were dozens of them. Rows and rows, each one about the size of a small phone, but so heavy that when she lifted one, her wrist dipped. Each bar had markings stamped into the surface, numbers, letters, and something like a small crest. Beside the crates, half buried in the sand, was a rusted biscuit tin. Inside the tin were papers. Old papers, brittle and brown, some kind of forms with typed columns. There was a small notebook with handwriting in it, and there was a photograph. Naomi held the torch closer, and the world tilted. It was a photograph of 2 men standing in front of a hole in the ground, with wooden crates stacked beside them. One of the men was young, thick-necked, wearing a white shirt, and she recognized his face immediately because his portrait hung in the corridor of the main house. It was Chief Adekunle Ogunremi, Harrison's father, decades younger. The other man was thin, dark, laughing, with a rope around his waist and a lamp strapped to his forehead. It was her father. Naomi came out of that hole shaking so badly she could barely stand. She dragged the slab back over the opening, kicked mud onto it, and sat down in the wet field with the biscuit tin pressed against her chest, and for a long time she could not think a single complete thought. She did not go back to the house immediately. She hid the tin inside her wrapper, finished the digging, and worked the rest of that day like a woman walking in her sleep. That night, in the small room she shared with Blessing behind a chemist shop in town, Naomi did not sleep at all. She lay on the mat and listened to her sister breathing, and she counted the things that money could fix. Blessing's school fees, 3 terms behind. The landlord who had already given them 2 warnings, the hospital bill from her mother's last month, still unpaid after 6 years, a debt that sat on her chest like a stone. New shoes, a stove that worked, a door with a proper lock, a life where she did not have to calculate whether they could afford both rice and fish in the same week. One bar, one single bar out of dozens, and every one of those problems would disappear. Nobody knew about that chamber. Nobody had known for 30 years. If she took 2 bars and pushed the slab back and never spoke of it again, no living person on earth would ever discover it. She got up twice in the night and stood by the door with her heart pounding, and both times she sat back down. It was not because she was holier than other people. It was that fear again, the fear of the name. She kept seeing herself standing in that shop in Abeokuta with a woman shouting the word thief at her while strangers watched. She kept thinking about Blessing growing up and someday hearing that her sister had built their life on stolen gold. She thought about her father in that photograph with a lamp on his head, and about Babatunde saying that some good men are punished for being good, and she decided that whatever else the world took from her, it would not take her name. At dawn she washed her face, plaited her hair, and walked to Ogunremi Farms to do the most honest thing she would ever do, and the most expensive. She waited outside the chief's study until 9 o'clock. When Yusuf tried to send her away, she refused to move, and something in her face made him stop arguing. When Chief Harrison finally called her in, she told him plainly that while digging near the eastern irrigation line, she had found a covered chamber under the ground, and that inside that chamber there were crates of what she believed was gold. Harrison laughed at her. He accused her of drinking. He told her that if this was a joke, she would be off his property before noon. So she led him there herself, in his boots and his cap, with Yusuf and 2 other men following. She hooked the shovel through the ring and helped them lift the slab, and when Harrison climbed down into that chamber with a torch, Naomi heard a sound come out of the ground that she would remember for the rest of her life. It was a rich man laughing. By that afternoon, the farm was in chaos, and Harrison had the crates carried up under guard and locked in the storeroom of the main house. He called a man from Lagos, a dealer named Mr. Collard, with a leather bag and a small scale, who arrived that evening and spent 2 hours testing bar after bar. Naomi was serving drinks in that room, invisible as always, and she heard everything. Mr. Collard said the purity was extremely high. He said the bars were old, refinery cast, and that markings like that were not common. He weighed the crates and did his calculations twice, and then he told Chief Harrison that on the international market, what was sitting in that storeroom was worth somewhere close to $10 million. $10 million. Naomi's hands went numb around the tray. Harrison stood up and walked around the room 3 times without speaking. Then he asked Mr. Collade, in a voice that had gone very quiet, whether there was any way to know the original number of bars. Mr. Collade said no. Whatever was there, and Naomi watched the chief's eyes travel slowly across the room and settle on her. He asked her how long she had been down in that chamber before she reported it. She said a few minutes. He asked her again. She said the same thing. He asked whether she had been alone, and she said yes, and the moment she said it she understood, too late, what she had walked into. Then Chief Harrison Ogunremi looked at his poor housemaid standing there with a tray of drinks in her hands, and he asked the question that changed everything. He asked her how he was supposed to know that she had not already taken some for herself. Naomi tried to answer him, and that was her second mistake. She told him that she could have taken all of it and disappeared, that she had come to him of her own free will, that she had touched nothing. But her voice rose while she said it, because the injustice of it burned her, and the more she defended herself, the guiltier she looked, because in this world, calm people are believed, and angry people are suspected. Harrison did not shout. He simply told Yusuf to search her. They started with her room in the servants' quarters. 4 men went through it while she stood in the doorway. They turned the mattress over, emptied the bucket, pulled her clothes off the line, shook out every wrapper. Then they went outside into the courtyard where the workers were gathering, and Yusuf told her to bring her bag and empty it in front of everyone. That is the moment this story began. Naomi standing in red dust with a broken comb and a photograph of her sister at her feet, while 40 people who knew she was innocent looked at the ground and said nothing, because every one of them needed their salary at the end of the month. Mrs. Folaki was the only one who spoke. The old cook said loudly that the girl had brought the thing to the chief herself, and that God was watching all of them. Yusuf told her to go back to her kitchen. She went, but she was weeping, and then one of the men came out of the servants' quarters holding a rusted biscuit tin. Naomi's whole body went cold. She had hidden it inside the roof of her room, wrapped in a plastic bag, because she had not yet decided what to do with the photograph of her father. She had been waiting until she could ask Baba Tunde. She had told nobody. Harrison opened the tin in front of everyone. He pulled out the old brown papers, the little notebook, the photograph. He glanced at them for barely 2 seconds. He did not even look properly. He was too angry. And then he held the tin up above his head so the whole courtyard could see it, and he said that here was the proof. Here was the property of his family, taken from under his own land, hidden in the roof of a maid's room. He said it slowly, so that every worker would understand what happens to people who take what belongs to him. Naomi tried to explain about the photograph. She tried to say the name of her father. Harrison told her that if she opened her mouth again, he would call the police from Abeokuta, and that girls who go into police cells in this country do not come out the same. She stopped talking. He fired her on the spot. He instructed the office not to release her final salary, 2 months of work, 48,000 naira, money she had already spent in her head 100 times, and said it was compensation for what she had attempted to steal. Yusuf and 2 men walked her to the gate. Someone had already thrown her clothes into the dust outside, and she had to kneel there and gather them in front of everybody, and that was worse than the searching. That was the part that stayed with her. She walked the 4 kilometers back into town, crying so hard she could not see the road properly, and behind her the farm was celebrating. She could hear the music start when she was still within earshot of the fence. Chief Harrison had opened cases of drinks for his men. He had made a fortune that morning, and he had thrown away the woman who gave it to him, and he had not spent 1 minute thinking about her. That night, Naomi did not tell Blessing what had happened. She told her that the farm had reduced its workers. Blessing, who was 10 and sharper than any child that age should have to be, looked at her sister's swollen eyes and did not believe a word. But she also did not ask, because she had learned that some questions cost more than they are worth. Naomi lay awake and did the arithmetic of ruin. No job, rent due in 11 days, school fees due in 3 weeks. Her name spoiled across the whole local government area, because by the following evening, the story had already spread through Ago Oyin, the way fire spreads through elephant grass, that the maid at Ogunremi Farms had been caught stealing gold. 2 shops she had worked for before refused her when she went back. A woman she had known since childhood crossed the road rather than greet her. She thought about leaving. She thought about taking Blessing to Lagos and disappearing into a city big enough to swallow their names. On the 4th day, an old man came to her door. Baba Tunde had walked all the way from the farm on his bad leg, and it had taken him most of the morning. He sat on the step outside her room because he refused to come in, and he drank the water she brought him, and then he asked her one question. He asked whether, inside that chamber, she had seen anything apart from the gold. Naomi told him about the tin, about the papers, about the photograph of her father standing beside Chief Adekunle Ogunremi. The old man closed his cloudy eyes and sat still for so long that she thought he had fallen asleep. Then he said something that took the air out of her lungs. He said that her father did not fall into any well. He said that in those days, everybody in Ago Oyin knew that Sunday Adeyemi had been called to Ogunremi land to dig, and that after that job he came back changed, quiet, frightened, refusing to spend the money he had been paid. Baba Tunde said that Sunday had come to him one night and told him he had found something buried on that land that could put a big man in prison, and that he was going to Ibadan to report it to somebody who would listen. He went to Ibadan on a Thursday. On Friday, the family was told he had died in an accident at a site he had never mentioned to anybody, in a town where he knew nobody, and the body was brought back already wrapped and buried the same evening before his own wife could see his face. Baba Tunde said he had carried that knowledge in his chest for 30 years, and that he had been too poor and too frightened to speak, and that when he saw Naomi's face on that farm, he knew God had brought her back to that land for a reason. Then he told her that she needed to leave Ago Oyin, not for a while, immediately, because the men who buried that gold had killed to protect it once already, and now the whole world was about to hear that it had been dug up. Naomi asked him what he meant by the whole world, and Baba Tunde told her that on the previous evening, 3 government vehicles had driven through the gates of Ogunremi farms and had not come out again. What Chief Harrison did not understand, in his joy, was that $10 million is too much money to keep quiet. Mr. Kolade, the dealer from Lagos, had gone straight to a colleague with photographs of the markings on the bars because he wanted to know what he was buying. That colleague recognized the crest. He recognized it because those markings appeared in a bulletin that had been circulated to dealers and refiners across the country decades earlier and had never been withdrawn. In 1994, a bullion consignment belonging to a Federal Reserve transfer had been hijacked on the Ibadan-Lagos road. 9 men were involved. 3 were killed in a shootout weeks later. 4 went to prison. 2 were never identified, and the gold, every single bar of it, was never recovered. It remained, for 30 years, one of the largest unsolved robberies in the country's history, the kind of case that old policemen still argued about. Within 72 hours of Naomi being thrown off that farm, investigators were standing in Chief Harrison's storeroom. They came with soldiers and with a woman in a grey suit named Barrister Ngozi Okonkwo, who led the recovery unit and who did not smile once. They photographed every bar. They matched the serial markings against a list. They sealed the storeroom, then sealed the whole eastern section of the farm, then dug up the chamber and took away the crates, the sand, and everything in them, and they took the biscuit tin. Harrison, who had spent 3 days telling everybody in Ogun State that God had blessed him, suddenly found himself explaining to federal investigators why stolen national property had been buried under his father's land. He did what men like him always do. He blamed a woman. He told the investigators that the gold had been discovered by a housemaid he had since dismissed for theft, that she had concealed documents in her room, that she had almost certainly known about the chamber in advance, and that in his opinion she should be arrested immediately. He gave them her name and the name of her town and the description of where she lived. He thought he was throwing her under the vehicle. What he did not realize was that he had just told the one person in Nigeria who most needed to hear it exactly where to find the daughter of Sunday Adeyemi. Barrister Okonkwo had already read the papers in that tin. They were survey forms, old ones, from a private borehole contract dated November 1994, 3 weeks after the robbery, listing the client as A. Ogunremi and the contractor as 1S, Adeyemi. They were a receipt for concrete. And they were a small notebook in which a well digger had recorded, in careful pencil, the depth of a hole he had been asked to dig on a farm, the number of crates he had been asked to lower into it, and one line at the bottom of the last page, written in a shakier hand than the rest, saying that he did not believe the story he had been told about what was inside them. Naomi was frying akara at the roadside when the vehicles pulled up. She thought she was being arrested. Blessing screamed and held on to her waist, and it took 10 minutes and 2 neighbors to calm the child down, but Barrister Okonkwo did not arrest her. She sat with Naomi on a bench outside a chemist shop in a small town in Ogun State, laid the photograph on the table between them, pointed at the thin, laughing man with the lamp on his head, and asked Naomi to confirm his name. And that was how Naomi learned who her father really was. Not a poor laborer who slipped and died, a witness, a man who had been hired to dig a hole and cover it, who had worked out what he was covering, and who had gone to Ibadan, carrying the truth in his chest and never come home. Naomi told them everything: the chamber, the tin, the search in the courtyard, the salary they refused to pay her, and then she told them what Babatunde had told her on her doorstep, and Barrister Okonkwo wrote down the old man's name and underlined it twice. That was when it stopped being a story about gold and became a story about murder, and that was when it became dangerous. The threats did not begin with violence. They began with money. A man Naomi had never seen before came to her room with an envelope and said he had been sent by a family friend who wanted to help a young woman who had suffered. There was more money in that envelope than she had earned in 2 years. All she had to do, he said, was tell the investigators that she had been confused, that the tin had been in her possession for a long time, that she was not sure whose photograph it was. She gave the envelope back. 3 days later, her landlord told her she had 2 days to leave. He would not meet her eyes when he said it. Then Blessing came home from school and said, very quietly, that a man on a black motorcycle had been parked outside her school gate for 2 days, and that he had asked another pupil which one of them was Naomi's sister. That night, Naomi packed everything they owned into 2 bags and took Blessing to Mrs. Folake's brother's house in Ibadan, and she did not sleep for the entire journey. And then, on a Tuesday morning, Babatunde was found at the side of the road near the farm boundary with a broken arm, 3 broken ribs, and 1 eye swollen shut. 2 men on a motorcycle, no witnesses, nothing taken. Naomi went to the hospital in Abeokuta and sat beside that old man's bed and wept, because she understood that she had done this. She had opened a grave that had been closed for 30 years, and the people who dug it were still alive. Babatunde could barely speak. But he took her wrist with his good hand, and through a swollen mouth he told her something he had never told anybody, because he had finally decided that he was too old to die a coward. He said that on the night Sunday Adeyemi went missing, he had seen 2 vehicles leave Ogunremi land after midnight. He said Chief Adekunle Ogunremi was in the first one, and he said that the man driving the second vehicle, the man who had come back alone before dawn and washed something out of the boot with a bucket of water, while Babatunde watched from the shadow of the mango tree, was Adekunle's younger brother, a man who was still alive. A man who was 74 years old, respected, and living quietly in a large house in Abeokuta, Chief Harrison's uncle. The case broke open in the last week of November. Babatunde gave his statement from a hospital bed with a police officer, a lawyer, and a camera in the room, and once he started speaking, he did not stop for 2 hours. He named the vehicles, he named the night, he named the men. He described the sound of the second vehicle returning at 4 in the morning, and the bucket, and what he had seen washed out into the drainage behind the generator house. Investigators went back to the eastern section of Ogunremi Farms with equipment, and they did not dig where the gold had been. They dug 40 meters away, under a slab of concrete that had been poured in the same season, according to the same receipt, by the same contractor who had never been paid for the second job because he did not live long enough to invoice for it. They worked for 3 days. Naomi was not allowed on the property, so she waited in the car of a police officer, parked outside the gate, with Mrs. Folake holding her hand. When Barrister Okonkwo finally walked out to them, she did not need to say anything. Her face said it. She simply told Naomi, gently, that after 30 years, she could finally bury her father properly. Naomi did not scream. She had imagined for years that if she ever learned the truth about that night, she would collapse. Instead, a strange stillness came over her, and all she could think of was a man in muddy trousers, laughing and saying that the ground was his office. She sat in that car and cried quietly for an hour, and then she washed her face and asked what she needed to do next. The arrests came quickly after that. Harrison's uncle, Chief Bankole Ogunremi, was taken from his house in Abeokuta at 6 in the morning in front of his neighbors, in the same wrapper he had slept in, and the photographs of it were on every blog in the country by noon. He was charged in connection with the 1994 hijacking and with the killing of Sunday Adeyemi. 2 other men, both in their 70s, were arrested in Ilorin and Lagos within the month. Chief Adekunle Ogunremi, who had planned all of it, had escaped human judgment by dying in 2011, but his name was read aloud in open court many times, and everything he had built was pulled apart in public. Chief Harrison was not charged with the robbery. He had been a teenager when it happened, but he was charged with obstruction, with giving false information to investigators, and with attempting to sell recovered federal property because Mr. Collard produced the messages in which Harrison had asked how quickly the bars could be moved and whether the markings could be melted off. The gold, all of it, every bar, was recovered by the federal government. Not one bar remained with the Ogunremi family. The farm itself, along with 3 properties and 2 accounts, was placed under investigation as proceeds of crime, and the courts froze everything. Harrison spent 8 months in custody before he was granted bail, and by the time he came out, the workers had scattered, the poultry had died, and elephant grass was growing through the fence of the largest private farm in that part of Ogun State. Yusuf, the foreman with the rolled newspaper, went to court and testified against him in exchange for his own freedom. Naomi found that detail strangely unsurprising. And Naomi, under the recovery process, a formal reward was approved for the information that led to the seizure of the consignment and the reopening of the case. It was a percentage, not enormous by the standards of the money involved, but to a girl who had been fired over an unpaid salary of 48,000 naira, it was a number she had to read 4 times before she believed it. Alongside it, a civil claim was filed on behalf of the Adeyemi family, and it did not go to trial, because no lawyer in the country was willing to stand up and argue that side of it in public. Naomi Adeyemi walked out of that process a wealthy woman. She did not move to Lagos. She did not buy a Jeep. The first thing she did was clear a 6-year-old hospital debt that had been sitting on her chest since she was 16. The second thing she did was pay every naira of Blessing's school fees, 3 terms behind, and then pay the next 6 years in advance, and then sit in the car outside the school and shake for 10 minutes. She bought a small piece of land on the Abeokuta road and built a house with a proper door and a proper lock and a room each. She paid Babatunde's hospital bills and built him 2 rooms behind her own compound. And that old man spent the last 4 years of his life sitting under a mango tree, being brought food by a girl who called him her father's friend. She gave Mrs. Folake enough money to open the buka the woman had been talking about for 20 years, and it is still there, and the jollof is very good. And she reburied Sunday Adeyemi, properly this time, in Ago Oyin, with his name spelled correctly on the stone, and his whole town standing around the grave. Many of the same people who had crossed the road to avoid her came to that burial. Naomi greeted every one of them. She did not mention it. Some of them cried, and she suspected it was not entirely for her father. She saw Chief Harrison one more time, about 2 years later, in a bank in Abeokuta. He was thinner, his cap was gone. He was arguing with a teller about a transaction, and his voice had that particular sharpness of a man who is no longer used to being obeyed. He turned and saw her waiting in the line behind him, with a file under her arm, dressed simply, no longer anybody's housemaid. He looked at her for a long moment. Whatever he was going to say, he did not say it. He gathered his papers and walked out, and Naomi went forward to the counter and finished her business, and she was surprised to discover that she felt nothing at all, not triumph, not pity, just the quiet of something that had finished a long time ago. His daughter Damilola wrote Naomi a letter, once, from university. It was 2 pages long, and most of it was an apology for things she had not personally done, and Naomi wrote back and told her she was not responsible for her grandfather's hands. They are not friends, but they are not enemies, and in a story like this one, that is its own kind of ending. So think about what actually happened here. A girl stood alone in a dark hole under the earth, with $10 million in her hands, and nobody watching her, and she carried all of it up into the light and gave it away. And for that she was searched like a criminal, humiliated in front of 40 people, called a thief, denied her salary, and thrown into the road with her clothes in the dust. For 4 days, honesty looked like the stupidest decision she had ever made. But here is the thing about the truth. It does not need you to protect it, and it does not need you to be rich. It only needs one person to refuse to bury it. If Naomi had taken 2 bars that night, just 2, which no one would ever have missed, that chamber would have been sealed again, that tin would have stayed in a roof, and a well digger named Sunday Adeyemi would still be lying in an unmarked grave 40 meters from the gold he died trying to report. Her silence would have been bought with the same metal that killed her father. She could not have known that. That is what makes it worth something. She did the right thing when the right thing cost her everything, when there was no reward in sight, and no camera watching, and no reason to believe anyone would ever find out. The maid who was accused of stealing millions walked away with a fortune in the end, but not because she found the gold, because she gave it back. If this story moved you, please subscribe and share it with somebody who needs to hear it. And tell me in the comments, if you had been standing in that chamber, alone, with nobody watching, what would you have done? Type it in the comment section.